guest. I have a friend of the show back on to talk about her big debut pro boxing win, Lateesha, the Honey Badger Mohl. Lateesha, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me back on.
Days after your pro boxing debut, you've been on before to talk about MMA when you won the amateur flex belt, and then also talking about boxing. So talk us through it. How did it go for you Saturday night? Maybe round by round, give us a breakdown.
Yeah, it went really, really well Saturday night. Exactly how I had visualized it. I was actually going into the fight with an opponent we didn't know anything about. The original girl I was supposed to fight pulled out about 2 to 3 weeks before the fight. So luckily we were able to find someone that was willing to step in, and I thank her so much for that. That really meant a lot, not only to me, but to everyone else that came to the fights. But first round was definitely a feeler round just to kind of see what she was going to do. We didn't know anything about her, what her stance was. First round went really well. I actually heard her at the end of the first round with like 5 seconds left. Second round, I came out and just basically went to work on her, just kept, listening to my corner, doing exactly what they were saying, doing exactly what they were seeing. Same story for the third and fourth round. It seemed like right at the end of each round, I was hurting her, and oh no, what happened? So coming into the first round, we didn't know anything about her. So it was definitely a feeler round. We weren't even sure of her stance. So first round, we kind of figured her out, very quickly. And I just kept listening to my corner. Last 10 seconds of the first round, I actually heard her. I thought she was going to go down, but, she stayed up. And then from there, it was just kind of, that was the fight for me. I went out there every single round, did what my corners told me. Everything they told me worked. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the knockout, but it seemed like at the end of every round, I was really hurting her. So, I definitely have some things to learn from that. And I'm just really excited to go back and do it again.
Well, it's about as exciting as possible to come out of your debut pro. Anytime you go from amateur to pro in any sport, it's a big deal, particularly any type of combat sport. Talk a little bit about the confidence to take a fight on 2 or 3 weeks notice with a different opponent, and you didn't even know her stance. And I know in all fighting, you kind of start game planning stance. So how were you able to mentally agree to this with not knowing her stance and still going in and having a great result?
Right. And that's something that I think would probably bother a lot of people. As far as I go, I've never been the type of fighter that I don't do a lot of research on my opponents. I make my coaches do it, and then I just make them coach, teach me whatever they need to teach me. But with that being said, the majority of my fights this year, we didn't have a lot of information, I had 6 amateur fights this year.
Yeah.
And for most of them, we didn't know anything about the people I was fighting. So I worked with my sports therapist, and it was the same story as an amateur. You just go in there, you adjust, in between rounds. And I was very successful in 4 out of the 6 amateur fights I had this year. So I mean, I really just I just focused on what I could control. I can't control that it's someone different, but I can control how I beat them up, I guess.
Well, this is where I'll take a quick pause to just say what you just shared, Lateesha, isn't just great from the sports psychology point of view. One of the biggest things that oppress people with depression and anxiety from a mental health standpoint is exactly what you talked about. Not looking at what they can control, not accepting the things that they can't control, and then somehow getting caught up in the things that they can't control, but acting like they should be able to. It just becomes a whole nightmare emotionally. And so I'm glad that you're doing better as not only a fighter, but as a person. And for anybody watching this, you don't have to be a fighter to need to improve the way you think about things. That's just life in general. So it's always a pleasure having you on, because you talk about the mental health and the perspective that matters more than just the fight. And you've also given a lot of credit to your coaches. How well could you hear them? You talked about that this was going to be like a home fight for you. So how loud was it? How many people came out for you? What was the environment like for this fight?
Yeah, the environment was crazy. It took place in Harrisburg, so it was finally close enough. I have family members that live in Lebanon and Annville and surrounding areas. So, driving distance, the place was absolutely packed. I sold a lot of tickets, and what was really, really awesome was my teammates, the Perez brothers. They had a huge crew there because it was also their hometown, and they were
Right.
cheering for me too. So it was just really cool to see, even if they didn't know me that well, they were still cheering for me. It was really, like, I was so honored. Like, I was so humbled when that happened. It was loud when I came out. I will say that it was very loud. But I've just been working on, when I walk out, I kind of just look at the ring, and that's where I'm headed, and that's what I'm focused on.
Mm.
And when I'm focused like that, I could hear everything my corner was telling me throughout the fight. He said it, I did it. It was like he was playing a video game. If he pressed a couple buttons, I was doing it a second later. I can't thank them enough. Coach Claudia and Coach Jose was excellent in between rounds as well. He gave me great advice and kind of just, kept me calm and toned. And then Coach Claudia is just so loud. I could hear everything he was saying. So it was perfect. Even if it was loud, it was perfect.
Well, it's great to get the energy from the crowd. I know you've mainly fought your career elsewhere, as the non-hometown person, and
Yeah.
so it is nice to get that experience. It's also great. I'm quoting the great Stipe Miocic when he was defending for the first time against the Demolition Man. Yeah, and in Ohio, but now he talked about, even as a professional MMA fighter, that it was different with the loudness of the crowd for you. He had won his belt in Mexico when they were against him. So it is interesting that even a crowd being for you kind of can be a good thing, but can also put more in your mind. It's great to be able to focus. When did you start getting such a good connection with your coaches? Because that whole video game mindset where the coach says it and you do it is like everybody's dream, both as a fighter and as a coach. So when did that start? When did that connection start forming?
So I've worked with Coach Claudia actually for a couple of years. Before I even had my boxing matches this year, I would go to him for cross training, and he would help me with my boxing skill set for MMA and kickboxing. So I've been with him for about 4 years actually. But this year was my first year of having any boxing matches, even as an amateur. So this year we communicate really well. I tell him exactly what I need from him, and he tells me exactly what he needs from me. And that was really important with cornering. Every day I went into the gym, I would say, coach, I need you to tell me what to do every second of the fight. I need you to say these words to get me to do this. And eventually it got to the point where he was like, I know, stop telling me, I know. And he did. He did it perfectly. He did everything I asked, and I did everything he asked in return.
Well, again, you do such a great job giving insight into life. Part of a healthy relationship, whether that's romantic, which this course isn't, or at work, or really just in friendship, it's the ability to be assertive. This is another counseling term. It's like, this is so great for me, but what you were just talking about, Lateesha, is being able to clearly state what you need the other person to do. Whether or not they do it, that then depends on how you respond. If you tell somebody this is what I need as a coach and they don't do it, well, then they're not a good coach for you. And obviously, in your case, I think it's very good for a coach. When I was a coach, to be willing to learn that you can't coach the same way for each person. And some coaches, they have success with a certain style, so they just want to do that with everybody. And I think that isn't a good coach. A good coach figures out how they need to coach you. So it just seems great. You obviously have a lot of energy. Now that you've had, 3 days to think about it, what's your mindset now looking to the future? Because I think it was after your Flex MMA title win where your boxing really showed off. And it was really sort of the big hurdle emotionally and all those things. You started talking about knowing that you could have a pro boxing career. So talk about that now that you have a win under your belt and kind of are now officially an undefeated pro boxer. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's really cool to actually say that, as a
Yeah.
professional athlete, even though it's one fight, but hey, it still counts. I'm still
Oh,
technically
counts. You're a professional athlete.
yeah. So, I mean, I'm excited. I'm kind of willing, we're still early into the career. There's a lot to work on. I actually tried to look into maybe doing a pro kickboxing fight next, like a pro kickboxing debut, anything just to stay active. I think right now the hard thing with boxing, especially staying in the US, is finding people my size. And for females in general, it's always hard.
Mhm.
But I'm in college right now, actually. Next year I'm doing a health career, so I have to be, every day of the week in college. So for us to travel out of the country next year is not really, an option. But after that, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico,
Okay.
Mexico, they're going to have girls for me there. So right now it's just a matter of finding people, in my weight class, pro athletes, fair matchups that I can compete against. I would love to do boxing as soon as possible if we can find someone. If not, I'm still looking around. I'm keeping my options open.
Well, you've really shown that you have a disciplined mindset, which is great. That that you know a year is a long time in the sense that you're in college and you need to do that, but that year will go. That year will pass and you'll be able to do the international. And at the same time, I know you're connected. USKA fights, right? The kickboxing with Gary Grant. That could be hopefully, but it's getting the right size. I know that's very tough
Mhm.
for women. I was thinking about Lisa Ettinger. I've had her on the show, and she's the pro Muay Thai champ from both
Mhm.
USKA and has fought. And I know it's tough to get matchups as a female, really in any combat sport. So obviously, given the fact that you said you'd be willing to fight in the United States, would you and your coaches jump and go to California or some like Arizona? Would you fly around? Because I would think you might be able to find a couple matchups before that year is over.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely an option. Again, it would have to be, something where we would fly out on a Thursday night or a Friday morning, and we'd have to be back by Sunday because I'd have to be in college by
Because of
Monday.
your college, right, right.
Right. Right. But still, I mean, California, I know probably has some girls my size. I think
It's,
Texas was
yeah,
another popular area.
Texas. Okay, yeah.
So if it's something that I can work into my schedule and with the flight situation, absolutely, I'm down to do that. I'm down to make that work. Um, but we have to do whatever we can. I want to stay active. I'm not going to take a year off. I'll stay active. I'll take what I can in the meantime.
Well, I think it's a great mindset to have. I'm excited for you, obviously. And where were you in the order of fighting? Were you able to watch the Perez brothers later? Because I think they are more established pros. So how was that watching your teammates later in the card once you already had done what you wanted to do? It's a really great feeling to be a fighter who won and able to watch later fights. So how was that for you as well?
Yeah, it was awesome. It actually worked out perfect. So I was supposed to be the first fight, but they actually put one of the Perez brothers. He's actually the younger brother, Montana. He ended up going first. Unfortunately, I did not get to watch his fight because I was in my locker room and I was the second fight. So I was getting ready, warming up, stuff like that. But I could hear the crowd the whole time. Montana absolutely destroyed the kid
Oh,
the whole fight. And then I did get to watch both Antonio and Angel, who are the twins,
mhm.
fight, and they both got knockouts in their fights. And that was just so cool to experience and to like be in the crowd cheering for them. And like I said, they have a huge support, a huge crew there. So it was really cool to see them in action.
And for your team to go 4-0 on a night is
Right.
it's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
It's just exciting to see your energy, and obviously the gym's headed in a great direction when you can have 4 wins on the same night and you're around the right people. That makes a huge difference emotionally too. So um, I think this is it for now. I can't wait to have you back on the show once you get whether it's kickboxing or boxing schedule, because now you're a professional athlete. So that means you'll have to compete as a professional in kickboxing or MMA. So I know it's a step up no matter where you go. So it's very exciting. Thanks for your willingness to come on the show. I can't wait to see what happens in the future. And for everybody that's watching, I think you're going to be a fun person to root for and to follow for your career. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I absolutely love coming on here and talking to you. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate not only you coming on, but like we had taken a pause to kind of talk about the emotional things. You're really pointing out some really great things just as far as the way you think about life. And that's not about being a fighter. It's just about being a human. We all have things to work on. And I'm proud of you and I'm excited to the progress you're making. So have a good one. Thanks so much.
Thank you. It means so much. Thank you
All right,
so
you
much.
got it. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.